Turkey is home to about 3.6 million Syrian refugees. It's a humanitarian crisis that began in 2011 at the start of a violent crackdown on anti-government protesters. The country has been in a civil war ever since. It's a deadly conflict that's creating an extra obstacle in helping victims of this deadly natural disaster. Andrew Tabler joins me now. He is a Martin J. Gross Fellow at the Washington Institute. He's also a former National Security Council Director for Syria and has spent a long time reporting from Syria's capital, Damascus. Andrew, let's start in Syria. The northwestern part of the country was hit the hardest by these earthquakes. It's also a highly contested region. Can you help us understand that region and the different people, the different groups vying for control of that section?
Sure. In northwest Syria, the country devolved after President Bashar al-Assad lost control in 2011. And it has settled out into two major groups in opposition-controlled areas. One is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is in Idlib province, and the others are Turkish-occupied areas, which are in green in your map. Those are supported by Turkish direct forces and also Turkish-supported opposition in one way, shape, or form. On the borders of that area are forces that are controlled by the Assad regime, some elements of the Kurdish YPG, which are supported by the United States, at least in the eastern part of the country. And last but not least, we have Iranian elements, which are intermixed with some of the regime elements in that map in red. So a real mosaic of forces as the Syrian war sort of settled out in this way. And all of those different areas were struck by this week's quake.
And so given that mosaic that you painted, humanitarian groups are already struggling just in general, but how does that geopolitical situation affect efforts, do you think?
Well, they have been actually for years. The United States and Russia have been locking horns at the UN every year and now every 6 months over what's called the cross-border mechanism. And over the years, the Russians got the United States to whittle back supplies that were coming in from neighboring countries into opposition-controlled areas to one crossing at Bab al-Hawa that goes into Idlib province. And all aid today is funneled through that road. The problem is that area is one of the worst struck by the quake. So literally roads were shifted by 3 meters one way or the other, bringing down different bridges and interrupting all kinds of aid flows into the country. The other areas, which were normally supported by other crossings, have been blocked as a result of UN resolutions whittled back by Russia. So that whole area, the needs of people in those areas have been constricted by the authorities at the UN and elsewhere who have been trying to come to political agreements about how the Syrian civil war should end.
And Andrew, would you help me understand? So a number of millions of Syrian refugees are in Turkey, and Turkey has been basically sending them back into Syria. Why and why?
So inside of Turkey, you have huge problems with unemployment and other economic problems under President Erdogan. So the Turkish government has, of course, a policy of Syrians returning. All governments do, frankly. Many Syrians also want to return to their country, but of course, under different circumstances. So they have been going back to Turkish government-supported areas of Syria that were inhabitable. This has become a very strong issue for President Erdogan before his scheduled re-election on May 15th, which may or may not be happening as a result of the quake. But in other words, the Syrian refugee issue has become a liability for him, and I think for many inside of Turkey. And as it has been in a number of countries, Jordan, Lebanon as well. It's just not normal to have millions of Syrians living in neighboring countries indefinitely without any kind of plan to get them to return.
And one could imagine a competition for resources in the wake of these earthquakes that would make that situation even tenser and more difficult. Finally, Andrew, Erdogan has said he wants to meet with Bashar al-Assad, leader of Syria, to basically foster, some kind of peace and stability. Could this tragedy somehow speed that up, or do you think it makes that more complicated?
I think President Erdogan is going to be pretty busy for some time, which is understandable. But it does highlight the fact that these kind of meetings, this one was being brokered by the Russians, are all taking place while the United States in particular doesn't really focus on the Syrian crisis. So President Biden didn't mention Syria or even the earthquake at all in his State of the Union address, which would have been unthinkable a few years ago under President Obama or even President Trump. So stepping into the middle of that is Vladimir Putin. And all of U.S. allies and their adversaries are now making deals behind their backs. And one of the deals is to normalize Assad's return to the international community, despite his conduct during the war, the atrocities, and of course, as most famously known to most Americans, his use of chemical weapons on civilians.
Indeed. Andrew Taylor, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.